Okay. All right. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We are back. We are continuing on through our look through the triennial Torah portion. Um, actually, this portion begins on Deuteronomy 29, verse 10. But since we basically just did all of 28 last week, we didn't finish up with these last verses. So we'll start off with this week's portion with looking at, we'll just go through the whole 29th chapter um, and we'll go through it. The title verse is actually in 10. So we'll deal with that after we look at the first 9 verses, because there was something there that I wanted to look at and not skip over. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me pull this scriptures back up here. And we will read just read 1 through, let me get my cursor over here. The first 9 verses.
Okay.
Go ahead.
These are the words of the covenant which Yah commanded Moshe to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. And Moshe called all Israel and said to them, you yourselves saw all that Yah did before your eyes in the land of Mizraim, to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land. Your eyes saw the great trials, the signs, and those great wonders. But Yah has not given you a heart to know and eyes to see and ears to hear till this day. And I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your garments have not worn out on you, and your sandals have not worn out on your feet. You ate no bread and drank no wine, nor strong drink, so that you might know that I am Yah, your Elohim. And when you came to this place, Sion, sovereign of Hashmon, Og, sovereign of Bashan, come out against us to battle, and we struck them and took their land and gave it as an inheritance to the Reubenites and to the Gadites and to half the tribe of Manasseh. Therefore you shall guard the words of this covenant and do them, so that you prosper in all that you do.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll just start with verse 9 since we just read that one last, dealing with just this idea that the blessings of the Almighty are always connected to obedience, right? Therefore, you shall guard the words of this covenant and do them, so that you prosper in all you do. Right? That the way that you're able to prosper in all that you do is to actually do these laws, statutes, and commandments, to walk in the ways of the Almighty. Right? So just when we think about just the idea of people following after the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we there becomes kind of I feel like there's a huge misunderstanding that goes on when we look at this, because the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, was always about his people walking in obedience. And then somewhere along the line, obedience became this kind of non-existent thing. Like it's not connected. Well, it's connected with the so-called old God of the Old Testament, right? But it's not really connected to the so-called God of the New Testament, as if they're not one and the same.
Right.
So I just thought about that whenever I just saw that verse 9, but I wanted to go up. The verse I didn't want to skip over, the two verses that I wanted to deal with real quick, or let's see, what are they? 2 and 3, where it says, Moshe called all Israel and said to them, you yourselves saw all that Yahweh did before your eyes in the land of Mitzrayim, to Pharaoh and to all his servants and to all his land. Your eyes saw the great trials, the signs, and those great wonders. But Yahweh has not given you, this is a key what I was thinking about with verse 4, but Yahweh has not given you a heart to know and eyes to see and ears to hear till this day.
That's major right there.
Yeah, that's major.
I thought that was interesting.
Till this day.
Why do you think it's so interesting or major, as you say?
It's major because I mean that's a glaring, like, obvious point for us to, that stony heart that we always had, like that hardness that he said, when dealing with us. But back then,
What?
No.
Leave me alone and go play.
Ears to hear. We didn't know why we was doing this stuff. We just did it because, just cause,
Yeah.
Stay right here in front of the counter.
You can even apply that to today.
Right, in many cases, yeah.
A lot of people still don't have eyes to see and ears to hear because they don't read.
Yeah. Well,
even if they read it, they still.
Yeah. What
they understand?
What we gonna see is that, that's a good thing that you said that, because it caused me to. It's a point that needs to be made that it's not even about if I don't got the eyes to see, I could read whatever I want to read,
right,
and it don't mean nothing. These people saw this is powerful. They saw something that happened in history, and it ain't never gonna happen again until Yeshua crack the sky open and come down and show it to us.
Mm-hmm.
But they saw something that nobody ever seen before. And them saying that wasn't enough.
Yeah. For them to...
That's right. Wasn't enough.
Because why? Because it says, but Yahweh has not given you a heart to know,
right,
and eyes to see and ears to hear till this day. He hadn't done anything internally in them. That was able to cause them to be able to see from a spiritual perspective and hear from a spiritual perspective, to the point where those great trials and signs and wonders that they saw, those things didn't cause them to walk in faith.
To change spiritually.
It didn't transform them on the inside. They saw something and it was amazing. They might have had like a emotional response to what happened, but their heart was the same. It said until this day. So he's talking to that next generation.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking to those ones where it seems as if they've had eyes to see and ears to hear. So it seems as if he allowed for those ones to have a certain seeing and hearing be opened up to them, so they was at least able to make it into the land. they was at least able to get into the land. You know, and then what happens from there, you know, history will show us that. But they was at least able to have their eyes and ears open to the extent that those ones was able to get into the land. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was interesting just to look and see at the fact that there needs to be a spiritual awakening. Right. There needs to be something that happens on the inside of you. You seeing something ain't gonna do it, because they seen something that they was the only ones to see, right. And it didn't do anything for them. They died in the wilderness. Sure did. So it's important. It's important, and when we look at this, when we continue to look at this, it's kind of like a thing that kind of that's present in this 29th chapter that it goes along these lines in terms of the necessity for the Almighty to deal with us on the inside. There's something that has to happen to us on the inside, right? Because you know, just reading a thing ain't gonna do nothing. Just seeing these are some great. They heard the Most High's voice. They saw the pillar of fire walking through the wilderness at night in the cloud by day. They saw on top of the mountain the fire and the smoke and that sound trumpet that just kept on getting louder and louder on top of the mountain.
All after being brought out of their oppression.
All after that.
So you was
and the 10 plagues and all that.
And it didn't touch y'all, but everything around you crumbling and you walk out. Red Sea, walking through that.
Dry land.
Wow.
The level of oppression that those people was in. And it was interesting because I talked about when I was up at the penitentiary last week, I talked to them about the different levels of redemption, and how when we saw the level at which Israel was redeemed was really on 4 levels. They was physically taken out, so they was physically redeemed. They from mental aspect, being delivered from the bondage, like they was physically taken out and were delivered from the bondage, which would be connected to the mental part. Now we see that some of them, when I say some of them, I guess the ones that died were still bound in their minds, which was the reason why they wasn't able to make it out of the wilderness. But that freedom from the mental bondage was provided to them, because there was examples of those that were freed of it. Well, there was 2 examples, but 2 is something. So it means that was provided. So the third piece is the actual act of the redemption, being the whole the firstborn thing that happened, which was kind of that payment, that transference thing that happened. And then the fact that after that, the Most High said that he was going to be their Elohim, they was going to be their people, which would have been the spiritual aspect. So when we think about redemption, it got to be on all 4 of those levels, right? When we see the aspect of there has to be a thing that facilitates the redemption. In our case, the thing that facilitates the redemption is Messiah. There has to be a mental aspect. We have to be able to mentally understand what's going on and not be mentally enslaved by our former captive, right? Because that was their problem. but we receive that freedom with Yeshua. We have to have that spiritual connection. We have to be spiritually connected to the Almighty, which kind of fortifies the other parts. But the part that they had that we don't have in this time is that actual physical movement part. Because we could be spiritually connected, we can have received the actual redemption, and we can be mentally freed, but we're still sitting over here in Pittsburgh, in physical in exile. Like, this ain't our land, right? So we're able to look and see how with what the new covenant provides for us is kind of a thing that's growing, where we have parts of this thing manifesting, but there's more to be done. We can see that Yeshua done did all that he can do in terms of connecting us to the Almighty from a spiritual perspective. He's able to renew our heart and our mind. He's able to do that. He literally paid the price to buy us out of bondage, but he didn't take us to the physical place, right? So from that perspective, we could look back and see how what happened with them was even greater than what we see right now, because they had all four parts all simultaneously happening.
Yeah.
But that thing that they had wasn't enough, because it wasn't internalized on a collective level, which was the problem. Okay, so let's keep on going with this. We're going to read through. Does anybody have any thoughts about any of that stuff before we continue reading on verse 10?
It's self-explanatory.
All right, let's see. Let me see where I want you to stop at. I want to just... Okay, for now, I just want to look at, let's see, 10. Just read 10 and 11 here.
All of you are standing today before Yah, your Elohim, your leaders, your tribes, your elders, your officers, all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and your sojourner who is in the midst of your camp, from the one who cuts your wood to the one who draws your water. Okay, so
this Torah portion here is Nitzavim, which is dealing with standing. This concept of standing is it's pretty important.
Mm-hmm.
Just even thinking about that. I'm thinking about that verse in Ephesians, I think it is. Ephesians, where it talks about the armor. I think it's chapter 6. Yeah. Let me just pull that up. That's 6:11. Ephesians 6:11. See how far we want to go down to. Read down to 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Put on the complete armor of Elohim, for you have the power to stand against the schemes of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against authorities, against the world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. Because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim, so that you have power to withstand the wicked day, and having done all, to stand. Stand then, having guarded your waist with the truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having fitted your feet with the preparation of the good news of peace. Above all, having taken up the shield of belief, with which you shall have power to quench all the burning arrows of the wicked one. Take also the helmet of deliverance and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim.
Okay, so it says here in verse 13 here, saying, because of this, take up the complete armor of Elohim, so that you have power to withstand in the wicked day, and having done all to stand. And then it goes forth these things, which, by the way, is not talking about an actual belt or an actual breastplate,
Sure.
right? Or actual shoes, right? Or an actual helmet, right? Or an actual sword, right? This is not an actual sword, but you could get cut by it.
Get cut by it.
Right?
Double edge.
Right? Right. So these things is describing these things to you in a physical way, but it's dealing with things that's dealing with spiritual, because the whole reason why you're doing this because of all of these spiritual things that are against you, right?
Right.
So when we think about this idea of standing, right, I just wanted to think about that because, you know, this life that we live, right? This is it's a spiritual thing, right? So we have to be able to look at this, you know, from a spiritual perspective and understand that all of these, that's just his key stuff. All of these things that we see, right? It's important for that spiritual aspect to be fortified, right? And so we can look back, when we look back in the Torah and we see the difference, when we compared it to, and we able to see what was the reason why those ones wasn't able to make it through, and we're able to understand that, you know, it was always necessary for there to be a spiritual connection back to the Father. So I want to go back to Deuteronomy. You know, we just want to just remember that, you know, this is a spiritual thing, right? So we'll go back to Deuteronomy, back over here real quick, 29 and 9. Okay, so I wanted to look at this word here, right? Because it's talking about all of them standing today before Yahweh. And it goes through all the people, right? The leaders, the tribes, the elders, the officers. Give me this. All the men of Israel, the little ones, the wives, it's mentioned everybody, right? Nobody left out. The sojourner who's in the midst of the camp, the one who cuts the wood, the one who draws the water, right? Everybody's there standing, right? So let's look at this real quick. Let's look at this this word here, to stand. Let me flip it over here to this other version here. That over here.
Shabbat shalom.
Hey, Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
How are you?
Okay.
That's great.
Okay, our verse is verse 10, and this word is stand.
In Hebrews.
That's not sob.
Nasab.
If we was to look at this, in the actual text, the word not seem is kind of a just a tense of this, but this is the root of this word stand, not sob.
Mhm.
All right, so to station, right? We think of a station like we think of like the rally point, the fire station where all the people sit up there and they get together at, right? Also, we have this word here, establish. If you go and you set up shop, right, you would be establishing. You would set, and things would be set up. Also, let's see. Hold on.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean for him to be in this screen. You just be quiet.
Okay, so we have pillar, right? Pillar, right? Establish, stand upright, in the best state. So when we talk about the idea of standing, it's interesting to think back at what we was looking at back over in Ephesians in terms of how it was describing the standing with having this armor on, right? And again, these people who was here was the ones whose heart, whose eyes and ears was the ones that was able to be ready, right? These was the ones who was different than the ones who died in the wilderness, because the Most High said, he said, to this day, Yahweh has not given you a heart to know, nor eyes to see, nor ears to hear until this day. The ones that he was talking to was made ready. And those were the ones who was standing, right? Those are the ones who had been established. Those are the ones that were standing there upright, right? Like a pillar. Pillar is something that's kind of built up and kind of fortified, right? Okay, so let's look at some more of this here. The word study. Verb meaning station, to appoint, to erect, to take a stand. Abraham's servant stationed himself beside the well to find a wife for Isaac, right? He went over there and he kind of waited. He spoke to the Most High, said, I'm gonna go over here and find this wife, right? Jacob set up a stone pillar. The people stood up when Moses went out to the tent to meet Elohim. Elohim established the boundaries. What was the one I was looking at? Okay, so with this idea again of standing, there is kind of you have this idea of this kind of it caused me to think about faith, because when we think about faith from a Hebrew perspective, there's a continuity involved. There's firmness involved, right? There's steadiness. It's not wavering, right? Faith from the emet, which is emet is truth. That idea has the idea of firmness, right? If I'm going to stand my ground, right? I'm not going to let things come and push me over, right? So this idea of standing to be erect, to be like a pillar, right? There's firmness involved. Right. And it's interesting that it's describing these people who are here at this time after it just got finished saying that the ones who died didn't have the eyes to see and the ears to hear or the heart to understand. But these ones, there's a difference. So what's the difference? What's the difference? I'm saying this is the difference, right? There was a kind of a spiritual awakening that was made available to these ones to be able to preserve them, to get to the place that they were going.
At least that far.
Yeah. At least they made it into the land. They made it to the destination. Now, what happened when they got there was a whole other thing. But it just in terms of the fact that the Most High said that he was going to take them out and bring them over, he did that, and he made a way for that to happen. But what we want to be able to see here is the fact that it took the Most High actually dealing with these people in a deeper way than just them looking at something. They obviously wasn't able just to look at something and not be enough. They wasn't able just to see a thing or hear a thing and not be enough. And even to this day, we have to have that understanding to know that it is more than about me opening up this book and seeing some letters on a page, right? It's about a spiritual awakening, not a mental understanding that happens. Because many people could look at this same book that we all look at, but it's not changing your heart, right? And if your heart ain't changed, then right. But as we continue on, we're gonna see. As we continue on, we're gonna see a connection with those who, who are on the outside, and the people who died in the wilderness. There's a thing, and again, we're able to see this now. When we think about these things from a spiritual perspective, we're able to see what's going on. But I wanted to look at. I wanted to see if I could. I'm gonna see if I could do something real quick. That should be on. It ain't on. Make sure that's plugged in all the way. All right, let me I'm gonna try to do something here that I never did before. And it might not even work. But we're gonna see if I can. Yeah, see the lights on. There it is. We're gonna see if I can make it happen. Let me set this up real quick. I'm making some technological advances right here before your eyes. And already it's not working. Already it's not. Okay. All right, I'm gonna have to go low tech on you again. We'll do it like this. Low tech. Just so we can just get this idea here. Okay, so this word Nitzavim, this word Nitzavim is here. Let me get my little pen here. There's a noon. There's a noon.
We're doing the skills today.
It's a tzadi. That's an ein.
There's a pictograph, right?
No, that's a
It's a, ancient picture.
That's just a regular it's a next regular block script.
Oh, block script. I thought you were drawing characters.
But I need to get my eraser out because that's an ein and I'm trying to draw a tzadi. So the tzadi is like this. This is hard. Okay, the tzadi, not sab. Is this. Okay, so but I wanted to look at the ancient, right, which is a sprouted seed. That's a noon right there. The man on his side. That's supposed to be like a little circular thing. It kind of looks like a bigger noon, but it's a man on his side. And the oh, that's actually a pay. That's backwards. One day I'm gonna figure out how to do this in a better way. This is a tent plant. Okay, so we have the sprouted seed, which has the idea of continuance, right? So if you have the idea of continuance, something that continues on, right, with this man on his side that is outside of or in front of the bait, which is the house or the tent plan. So if you're continually on your side outside of the things that are necessary to build the house, almost like if you think about like because this man on this side is also a man that's hunting. That's kind of like if he's laying low and looking at his target, right? So if you think about like like somebody who's on guard, right, who's out protecting the house, right? He's like those people that's outside of Buckingham Palace that's out there they're just standing there, right? When we think about our position in our relationship with the Almighty, it really takes that type of firmness where there's a continuance, there's that firmness involved where these things, again, we think about what we just looked at in Ephesians with these spiritual things that's going on. Those things shouldn't be able to push you off of your situation, right? When we think about the difference between the two spies and the other 10, they both experienced the same thing, but their reaction to what they experienced was different. Two of them was able to remain firm. Two of them was able to stand. Two of them was able to be to decide to be ready to move forward. And it didn't matter what they was looking at. Right. So when we think about this again, tying it back into these ones here who are standing and who are hearing and who are seeing. The difference is that spiritual connection that's giving them the ability to stand, because it wasn't as if Joshua and Caleb were more physically able necessarily than the others, but it was that spiritual connection. It was that thing internally that was giving them the ability to stand. So for us, or even for them that was going into the land, they was able to actually not only audibly hear the words of the Almighty, but those things was actually doing something on the inside of them. They was not only able to physically see what it was that he was doing, but that sight that they had was doing something on the inside of them. Right? So there has to be that transference thing that happens when it just goes from what we see on the physical to that thing actually having some type of spiritual effects on the inside of us that's given us that ability to have that continuance and be the ones who are continually at the face of the tent and ready to fend off all adversaries and enemies that's going to come against our situation. Okay, so let's get this thing off here. I'm funny. Okay, so verse 12 and 13. Let me put this back over here real quick. Make this a little smaller. Okay, let's look at the verses 12 and 13.
So that you should enter into covenant with Yahweh your Elohim, and this is his oath which Yahweh your Elohim makes with you today, in order to establish you today as a people for himself, and he himself be your Elohim, and he has spoken to you, and as he has sworn to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzchak, and to Yaakov.
Okay, so something again, we're seeing something different is going on with these ones here today than what was going on with, because remember, the covenant with the people was made at Sinai, right? That was kind of the beginning there of the covenant. The Most High and the people made an agreement with one another. Whatever you say, I'll do it. That's what happened, right? But something's happening here at this time with this people as they get ready to move into the land, right? It says right there, so that you should enter into covenant with your Elohim and into his oath, which Yahweh your Elohim makes with you today. And again, I want us to, as we going through, remember the difference, right? Remember that these people have something that the other people didn't have, right? Because we want to just keep on remembering this. What verse was it? Verse 4. But Yahweh has not given you a heart. Your eyes saw the great trials, the signs, and those great wonders, but Yahweh has not given you a heart to know and ears to see, eyes to see and ears to hear till this day. Something's happening on this day that this thing is going on with these people, right? And we seeing the different things that that's going on. Okay, so I want to look at these two things because these two things is it don't really get it. It don't really get it. It don't really get it looking at this in the English. Covenant, we should be able to think about what covenant means. I'll put the thing up. Just as I'm looking for covenant, what would you say that means? You probably got your technology. You don't even got to think about it, right? But just bringing it up in the sense of covenant, compact because made by passing between pieces of flesh, a cutting. When you think about a covenant, it deals with a cutting. When you think about when Abraham made the covenant with the Almighty and had the animals, and he cut the animals up, and then the fire came and burnt down through the middle of the two pieces. Right, there's a cutting involved. The sign of the Abrahamic covenant being that cutting of the flesh. Right, in a covenant, there's like a cutting thing. Like I don't know where when you was a little kid, where you would sit up there and cut your hand and cut your buddy's hand, and y'all sit up there and shake
Blood brothers.
And I don't know where that came from, right? But there's a cutting thing. It's probably some. Did you ever did that?
No, I've done it.
No.
Yeah, never did that.
I did it.
I'm like, what's up, homie? What was it? You got the hand, kept it moving. I see you. I cut my hand and go on.
I've never done it, but
Well, I did it. I did it out of ignorance, you know. Brother, you know, blood,
young and dumb.
blood, all that.
Nobody has diseases or nothing.
He wasn't thinking about no
Wasn't
diseases.
worried about nothing.
He wasn't
The whole
thinking.
point was this is on bond.
Yeah.
I mean,
You so tight. If you got a disease, I'm gonna go ahead and get it. That's how tight you was.
He wasn't even thinking about that 40. They get passed around by all 6 of y'all.
Worried about none of that.
Yeah. So again, we think about this word that's talking about this covenant. There's this cutting thing that's
Hold on,
involved.
Tom, you did that?
What?
Did that?
What? Blood brothers?
Yeah.
I mean, when you was little, you did all
Oh,
kinds of
yeah,
stuff.
you never did that. Okay.
I'll say it might be.
That's not your skill pad.
Right,
If- It might be kind of a generational thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a little gap between, like, you know what I'm saying, what we did in our when we was young than what you might have did whenever you was young. And we did some crazy things back in the day.
Be surprised.
But I'm not saying that is right. I'm just thinking about the idea, right, of this cutting thing that's joining things together. So when we look at this here, these people here are entering into this covenant and into his oath.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the part that's going to trip you up right here.
It's a word for oath.
Where's what we going to see, right? Allah.
Wow.
And imprecation, curse, cursing, execration, oath, and swearing.
Wow. That stood out to me.
Okay, so what does that cause you to think about? Let's look at this word study, meaning of oath, a sworn covenant or a curse. A word that signifies an oath to testify truthfully, sworn covenant bearing a curse, a violated curse from the Elohim for covenant violations, Elohim's judgment on sin. Okay, so it's saying here, right? Thou shouldest enter into covenant with Elohim and into his curse. Remember that word means curse.
Which makes sense.
Well, how so?
Because either you follow my laws or you're going to be cursed for not following my laws.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know the law is not. I guess his name is Curse. Just crossed my mind. That's all.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if we as a people had kept his word and followed his law, statutes, and covenants, we wouldn't have had no problems.
That's
Mhm.
true.
Amen. But the fact that if you don't follow my laws, here comes my curses. Now you got to deal with the consequences of your actions of not following my law.
Yes.
You know, well, but I read the blessings that our ancestors could have had, and I look at them like, you big dummy.
I mean,
You know?
it's just like looking at our people today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got the same situation going on today where we're sitting here and we're trying to follow the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our abilities, but you got people that's like, oh, no, I ain't got to do that. And you see, you know what I mean, the type of struggles that they deal with.
It's like being in a relationship with someone you truly love, and out of immaturity, they decide to leave you. They have no idea of the stuff you had in store for them. You know, you could have blessed them, you could have gave them everything they wanted, but they chose to leave. So now they without. That's the same aspect with us and y'all. He loved us, man. He was gonna give us everything.
They was following the mother nation.
Yeah, they was. We prostituted ourselves to other idols.
And I think that parallel is good to think about, because if you think about it from a physical perspective, the only thing that I could really do without doing it is to kind of cause this kind of emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
I can only kind of woo you from a emotional standpoint. It's the only thing I could do.
Right.
I could do nice stuff for you. I could say that I'm gonna do this and I got this in store for you.
Right.
But there's nothing that I can do to make you feel a certain kind of way. I can't make you do what I want for you to do.
It's your freedom.
I can only kind of make it appealing for you, or show you what you could potentially receive as a result of being with me. But all I could do is just kind of woo you from an emotional standpoint.
Right.
I can't reach inside of your soul and right. Yeah. But that's the difference though, right? Because he didn't change them people's hearts.
Mm-hmm.
He just told them about the goodness that they could participate in.
Right.
But when we look at the new covenant, the thing that makes that difference is that renewed heart, taking away that stony heart and replacing it with that heart of flesh.
Yeah.
Right, where he's no longer just telling you what his law, statutes, and commandments are, but now he's putting them in your heart. He's writing them in your heart.
Right. Well, they agreed to it too, though.
Well, yeah, they agreed to it, but they didn't have what it took to fulfill their end of the bargain, though.
Right. They should.
That's the difference, because of what you brought up.
Yeah.
Is this whole thing with the man and the woman.
Right.
I could sit up here and tell you what I'm gonna do for you,
right.
and it could feel good for a while and sound good and all that, but at the end of the day, it's just
they ain't seeing it at the proper time.
You know, whenever we get over there, it's gonna be on and popping. When we get just wait till we get there. Everything gonna be.
It's a lack of patience, you know.
That's before we even went.
Well, he showed it's like he showed up all flashy, right, and showed you all of these things that kind of gained your attention. He got the people's attention with the plagues and all the wonders, all of the things that is said up there in the beginning verses. He got the people's attention, but at the end of the day, it was about when we get over here to that place that's way over there, this land of milk and honey that you gotta get over there too.
I think the problem is they was working in microwave times of wanting what was it called, self-gratification instantly.
Yeah, but it's not. They was living like that, but there wasn't no microwaves.
I'm talking about.
But that's just a human
metaphor.
That's a human condition, though. With the technology, we was able to manifest this thing. I want this thing right now. And technology is just a result of who we are as human beings. I want this thing now. I want to wait for it.
Yeah.
I want the thing now.
That's why I call it the microwave moments.
Yeah.
You know,
but I'm saying that them people was that, and there wasn't no microwave because that's just humanity.
That was right.
It's just humanity. That's what we want our thing right now.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. That's just, you know what, that made me think about Abram and Sarai before Abraham and Sarah. Like Abraham could have told her when the angel told her that she was going to have a child, you know. It was a lack of patience because she was like, huh? She was like, well, Abraham, why don't you go sleep with Hagar and do this and do that? He could have stopped and told her right then and there. What did the angel say? What did y'all say? We're gonna wait for it. But he didn't listen. Microwave moments. He went and did what she asked. Right, lack of patience. So he stepped ahead of y'all and tried to formulate the plan of his own doing, him and his wife. And the result was a covenant of bondage.
And the thing about it is that you're just able to really see the human condition. You're able to really see how we operate. And just like they operate the same way that we operate today. We want whatever it is that we want, and we're not always willing to go through the things that it takes in order to get that thing properly. You could get a thing. Right. You could get a thing easy, but are you getting it the way that you're supposed to be getting it? That's the problem. Yeah. So, but going back though, you was right on point when it talks about this idea of being in covenant, taking this covenant and taking on the curse is dealing with the curses that come as a result of the disobedience.
Right.
You taking this thing on to yourself. James 2 and 10. I could just pull it up.
James 2 and 10. Yeah. That's like they pleading and they wanted to agree with him just for the sake of agreeing.
Well, I mean, but the thing is, you can't even say, the thing is we can't look at them people that was there and be like, I never would have did that. I never would have fell off.
I would have never done that, but
because you'd have been right there with them.
Because I did it with the judge.
Man, look, over there, we had all these leeks and onions and garlics and fishes.
And you feeding us manna.
And we was in there eating the same old thing every day.
Yeah.
Right. You'd have been right up there talking like, yeah, that's right. That's right.
I know I would have did it because I did it with the judge. You know, I'm gonna cut you a break and give you this amount of time probation, but if you're coming back in front of me and you doing this and doing, I won't do it. Just give it to me. I can do it.
Back out on the
I went right back out there. What I do? Disobeyed.
It's just humanity. That's just what we do. We say what we think we need to say when we need to say it. Not to say that them people wasn't sincere when they said whatever you say I'm gonna do.
Right.
But again, you're not taking away that stony heart that's on the inside of you and this emotionalism that we get caught up in. Right. I'll follow you as long as it's good times. Right. But soon as it's bad, there's nothing internally to be able to help you to stand.
That is true.
That's the problem.
That's the human nature, because you could do so many good things for someone, but that one mistake you make, they will always bring it up. They'll never forget that. They'll forget all the good things you did. You know, you make that one mistake. Oh man, they ain't gonna never forget that one.
Okay, so let's just look at this James 2:10. Read that real quick.
For he who said, "Do not commit adultery."
10.
Which one? 10?
Yeah.
For whoever shall guard all the Torah and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all.
Okay, so also we're gonna add to that.
That's
We're gonna
deep.
add to that.
Yeah, that's deep, right?
Leviticus.
You can go under the iceberg with that one.
Leviticus 5 and read that one.
Which one?
17.
And when any being sins, transgressions of the law, and has done what is not to be done against any of the commandments of Yah, though he knew it not, yet he shall be guilty and shall bear his crookedness.
Okay, King James probably says iniquity right there.
Right.
So when we think about the fact that it don't matter if you knew that you did a thing or not, that guilt is on you as a result of the transgression. Right? If you want to sit up here and do a thing, you can't say, well, I didn't know.
Man is without excuse.
Right?
That's right.
If when you do that thing, the guilt is on you and you shall bear that iniquity. That iniquity is on you. That guilt is on you as a result of that transgression of that sin. Right? So when we think about this idea going back of making this covenant and not only accepting the covenant, but the consequences of my not following the covenant,
right?
You taking it all on, right? You taking the blessings and the curses on when you say, I'll do it. You taking it all on.
Right.
That guilt is on you.
You know, I agree with that because I'll apply it to my own life as an example. You know, even though I try to do right and everything, because of my past sins and breaking the law, I have to bear the crookedness and the guilt of it every time I hear somebody bring it up. No matter what I'm doing, prosperous and righteous and trying my best to please y'all, someone always pop up and say, but you did this in the past. You know, like for instance, we get felonies. We can't get the good job because we're bearing our guilt, you know, because they looking at us like, well, you marked for doing this and that. I don't know if I want to mess with you. You know, that's a form of bearing your guilt and, you know, crookedness and just feeling it.
Well, well, just to talk about that, you know, when you think about the consequences, I can have the consequences of the sin that I've done.
Right.
But I'm not, but it's different from me. So when we think about, you know, things that we've done in the past,
yeah.
When we take those things to Messiah, he's able to forgive us of those things. He's able to lift that guilt from us. Right? So that iniquity is no longer connected to you anymore. But the consequence of the action may still be there, but that guilt is gone.
Yeah.
So I can't look and say, oh, I'm this terrible person because I did all of those things and there's nothing that could. That's what Messiah does on the inside of us. He's able to take those things away. And when we think about the idea of mental bondage, that's what those people back there in the wilderness was doing. The Most High made them free, but in their minds, they were still locked up.
Numerous
You
times.
gotta let him take it. You can't hold that.
That's a part of being delivered.
But what I'm saying is that thing was provided to them because Joshua and Caleb was there right with them. They was all in bondage together. And then they all got freed together. But some of them was able to put everything in the master's hand, and most of them wasn't. But that's mental bondage. Whenever, you know, we have these things, nobody knows what we've done on an individual level better than ourselves.
Right.
But we have to be able to give all of those things over to the master, and that's part of standing. That's part of standing, is being able to do that, because if you got these things that's holding you down. It's kind of blocking your growth.
Yeah.
When if there was always a thing that I could sit up there and be like, remember that one time whenever you had did that one thing, and then every time I know it's gonna mess you up, and then I'm gonna bring it up, and then it's gonna mess you up every single time. Oh, you remember that one time whenever you did that one thing, and
now you shut down.
We got to be able to get to the place in Messiah where it don't matter that somebody's be like,
that's not me no more.
Right? That's freedom, right? That's freedom from that bondage.
Right. Don't they?
Yes.
Don't
But
they?
the thing is, they can only.
But what you gonna do when that happens?
Yeah, they can only use it if you allow
it to be used against you. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, once you give it to him and you like, you know what? I'm confessing my sins here, and I'm truly repenting for this. This is no longer me. I'm killing this old man. Right. Nobody can come 5 years down the road and be like, hey, this is who you used to be, and and you fall and be like, oh, you know what? I might as well go do this again because
what was me? You're right.
Such said, like, no, that's your step over. Like, okay, cool, that was me, but now I'm this. I'm no longer that man. You apparently don't know who I've become. You know who I was.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of, you know what I mean?
Right.
Being.
That's like when you break trust with somebody. You learn from it. You've been forgiven of it, and you try to make reconciliation with them, but you have no control how they look at it because maybe they was hurt, so they'll keep bringing it up, thinking not wanting to be hurt again.
Sure.
But how do you respond to that? Because everything you say, they ain't gonna believe you. So you got to give it to y'all. You just got to give it and put it in his hands.
The only thing you can do from that point forward is show and prove.
Show and prove with action.
I can only show you through my actions that I'm no longer going to do these things.
Yeah, it does bother you though, because it bothers me. Because I recently went through something like that. I did something that I shouldn't have done.
But you're human.
But I am human. But I also let them know, don't put me on no pedestal because I'm not perfect. I'm not saying that as making an excuse, but I'm not perfect. So don't put me high above and having these great expectations of me, because I'm not there. I'm still a work in progress.
Right.
But when it did happen, I noticed that it was a form of trust that was lost. And in order to get that back, it's going to take some time.
Right.
But however, I got to give it to y'all, because no matter what I say and my actions, every so often they'll bring it up.
Well, the thing about it is that it's, if you're talking about people in dealing with each other, I can say, like, if I sit up here and do something to you, I could say my piece and I'm sorry or whatever,
right.
And then I could say, well, I'm just gonna give it to the Almighty.
Right.
But you gotta say that at some point too.
Right. Yeah. That is true.
Because if we talking about a relationship, I might be able to feel okay about myself, about what I did,
right,
and keep on moving, but you ain't able to, and then you always bringing it up. It don't make me feel a certain kind of way because I'm done with it, but you didn't.
But they have to make their peace with
so when you talking about in relationship, that got to happen on both ends.
That have to happen on both ends.
It got to happen on both ends.
Right.
Yeah.
To y'all, yeah.
Trying to throw it in my face, like, no.
Well, you get somebody say, "Well, I'm not y'all." I'm not saying you.
Well, see, the thing is that we have to be able to understand is that the Most High, when we look at this Torah and we say that we following in this Torah, again, his Torah is his character humanized.
Right.
When we look at how he gave us this law and these statutes and commandments, is showing us how he would behave if he was walking around.
Right.
So we can be as he is.
Right.
He given us the ability to do it. He gave us his law, statutes, and commandments, and he gave us the Ruach HaKodesh that leads us and guides us. So you can't really even say you're not in the position that these people was in, and that was under this old covenant where they was able to literally say, I can't do that.
Right.
I'm not able to do it.
Right.
we're in a position with the Ruach HaKodesh living on the inside of us that yes, we can actually do it.
Right.
So for me to have you say that excuse is just an excuse. You know, I could either make an excuse or I could find a way. If I'm making excuses, I'm not interested in finding a way. Right. Or I could see what I got to do in order to move forward. So, you know, we had to get to the place where we not doing that, because we're able to look back at these people and see the difference is that these people was working out of carnality, where we are now working from a spiritual aspect, right? So that's why we got kind of the upper hand in relation to them, is where they're looking at these things and seeing all of these things that they must do. And then that Moabite woman come across, that Midianite woman come across.
Yeah.
And then the carnality just take over, right? Yeah.
She's ruining everything.
Right. So again, we have to look at this spiritual aspect where he's actually building us up from the inside out. He's given us the ability to stand, and he's given us the ability to walk in this covenant that that we made without those oaths being put on us.
People need to understand, though, that even when you falter and fall and backslide, it might not be crucial, because everybody has a story. Some more gruesome than others. But even if I would sin, I would just say that. If I would sin, I'm not going to put it on a level of it's not that much or this increase. But I sin. I repent. I'm forgiven. I move on and don't do that again. You know, it's up to the other person to realize, is that what we supposed to do? You understand? They can't hold it against you and say, oh, y'all's going to punish you because you did this. I said, he's not up there banging his feet on the floor. Said, oh, man, look at this man that just did this to me. I said, no, he seeks you. He looks and see if you're going to have a repentant heart. He already know we're not perfect. I said, but that's no excuse to continue to act a fool. But we learn from it and go. You understand? It's just some people think that that's not doable or something, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, people are on their different levels, but you at some point you have to get to the understanding of what it is that the Ruach HaKodesh is here to do in you, and it's to transform you, it's to change you, right? So, we all should be expecting to grow. The only thing that don't grow is something that's dead, right? Those are the things that don't grow, the things that's dead. Things that are alive grow. So, we don't move backwards, right? We might fall down, but we get up and keep on moving forward. If you moving backwards, you're not growing. That's something that's dead.
I like that.
Yeah, go ahead. You can have that. You can have that one.
I like that.
And then I use it in simple terms too. Like I did my presentation, I was telling them about the great boxers, Van Holyfield, Mike Tyson. I said even they in the beginning hit the canvas many, many, many times before they became great at what they did, because they learned as they went. They faltered, they failed, they hit the pavement, hit the canvas, but they got back up and kept at it. We must do the same. I told the when I used to coach football, I used to tell them we practice like we play, and you play like you practice. So when you read this word, you must read the word as you apply it to your life, and apply it to your life as you read the word. You can't play with that thing. Practice make perfect, you know?
And the other thing is that, again, always looking back at and dealing with us now, how we dealing with this today. When you've had a genuine conversion experience with Yeshua, when he's actually has changed your heart and he's in the process of changing your mind, right? When we find, when he shows us through the Spirit things inside of us, that's part of growing. When he's showing us things inside of us that don't belong there, we should be seeking to get those things out of our life.
Right.
That's what the Spirit is doing. So again, we think about the idea of growth and progressing and not being stagnant. You not dealing with things that's in your situation that are not of the Almighty. It's just like you not growing, you're not advancing, right? You're not walking in the Spirit. You fulfilling the lust of the flesh, and you not walking in your you're not being in the mind of the Spirit. So we have to get to a place where the Spirit inside of us is the thing that's leading us and guiding us. But so when we look at this, I wanted to bring this up also. When we think about in 13 here, that
sometimes you gotta go to him to help you.
Well, you saying sometimes
All the time.
okay, that's better. Yeah. That's how it is, right? You can't do it by yourself. You cannot.
I go to him all the time.
But that's the point, though. Knowing that he's there to do that, but taking advantage of that, though, right? Not just knowing it, like I could always just, but don't never, you know what I mean? Oh, I could always just go over here and deal with him whenever I know he's there for me whenever I talk to him, but I don't never. If I got a thing, if I know that I sit up here and stab myself with these plastic forks all day, right, and I know that I could talk to the Father and have him stop me from stabbing myself with these plastic forks, but I don't never talk to him though. I just keep on doing it. That's some more of that death stuff happening, right? That's right. Oh, but it don't always got to be that though. You know what I mean? Because in our own carnal minds, in our carnal mind is at enmity with the Almighty. I'm saying stab myself with a fork, but it could be something that's not like that. But to the Most High is all that, right? Everything that ain't of Him is all wicked, right? You could be some other wicked thing that I've come to the realization. If I take this to the Father, I know He could take it.
Yeah.
But I don't never take it to Him. That's
it.
wicked.
Or you ain't ready to. Yeah.
Here's the thing. He gave this to us, and He is like the strength for us to act it out. So he's not the center of all of it, you can't do it anyway.
Right.
It's like you can't have righteousness without Him.
Right. That's some self-righteousness,
Yeah, it's like if you ain't calling out to Him, using Him, or doing what He say, or having that faith, and you don't got Him anyway. You're not doing righteousness anyway.
Right.
Yeah, and it's wickedness though, because you already got to the place where you understand that you're supposed to be walking according to His ways. But then you got these things that you know about, but you ain't giving it to Him. You hear Him that He wants you to go over there and make 2 lefts and a right, but you ain't doing that.
Right.
But that's wicked though.
Right.
If you're not walking in what He wants for you to be doing, it's not like a passive thing. It's literally like wickedness. Because I already said that Yeshua is going to be my master. I already said that.
Right. Agreed to it.
I accepted the covenant and the oaths.
Right.
I already done said that He was going to be my master and my ruler and my controller. Right. But then I ain't letting Him control me all the time.
Right.
That's wicked.
I made a joke about that. I said, if you ever want to hear y'all giggle, tell Him your master plan and it don't involve Him. I said, if you want to hear Satan laugh at you, Tell him you love y'all when he know you ain't keeping the commandments. You get it? Love me, you keep my commandments. So
verse 13, we read 13, but when we look at this, right? So you enter in the covenant and into his oath in order to establish you. In order to establish you. We already talked about standing before and establishing and standing up. This is not stand. This is well, there's another word for stand, but it's not the same. It's not the same one we was looking at. This one is cum.
Cum.
Yeah, cum. I'm about to pull it up.
Establishes.
Cum.
Yeah. Cum the group.
If I was on the ancient, I say quam.
Quam. Okay.
Quam. Yashara.
Quam Nasharala.
Hey, rise.
Rise, Israel.
Rise up, right? So you doing this thing, right? You taking on this covenant and taking on the oaths in order that you rise.
Right.
In order that you rise up, that you're able to rise above all of this stuff that's down here. All of this stuff. Yeah, this dirt. All the stuff that makes you dirty, right? You're able to rise above it by taking part in the covenant and taking in those oaths, accepting the consequences of breaking these covenants.
Yeah, big. Modern day, you think that is the most I don't get no consequence for being disobedient. Everybody walking around, I'm blessed.
Mm-hmm.
How you walking around? By the blood. I'm blessed. I'm blessed and highly favored.
Blood is
cheap. But you're doing contrary every which way.
Yeah.
Something go down. Even if we are walking, best our ability, and something go down, at least if you're at a certain level, you can be like, maybe it's something. I need to step up somewhere. It's a sign. It's something. Looking at as it's something for correction.
Yeah.
As opposed to devil jumping on me, and I ain't doing nothing. But
because it's always a devil.
Yeah.
You never, consequences of your actions. It's always the devil trying to get you. Like, no, you wasn't doing right to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
The devil ain't worried about you because you off. The only person that's correcting you at this point is the Most High saying, hey, you need to fall back in line because you're supposed to be my child. I need you to show these people out here that my light is out here. You can't be the light if you're doing what you're doing.
All right, let's yeah, that's very good. Let's look at 14 and 15. 14 and 15.
And not with you alone.
Hold on, just read 13 again. Read 13 again.
In order to establish you today as a people for himself, and he himself be your Elohim, as he has spoken to you, and as he's shown you to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and Jacob. And not with you alone, I am making this covenant and this oath, but with him who stands here with us today before Yah, our Elohim, as well as with him who is not here with us today.
Mm-hmm.
Very huge.
What are you talking about right there?
That's still the oath. But what he's saying is, I'm not just making this with you all that are standing here with me right now.
Yeah, with them who
this
ain't.
Is going further than just you. First off, not just you that's standing here, but for where's it at? He who stands here with us today, meaning that, when we came out, it wasn't just us there. We had, people that joined in with us. The stranger came with us. There were some of those that came along. So them there as well. And then the future, when he says, as well as him who is not here, that's a future prophecy there. That means that your generations down the line that haven't come yet, This stands with them too.
We're still underneath that same covenant.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look back here. At, let's see. Six and seven. Read 6 and 7 right there.
And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up.
Okay, so when we think about this, right, kind of built into the commandments is this idea of passing the commandments down to the next generation, right? So it becomes your obligation to continue the covenant and teach the covenant to your children. And because you have that responsibility, since it's built in, that's why we are where we are right now. The thing was built in for them to continue it on. The people went astray, but it don't make us not guilty though. We still guilty, even if we don't know, because we don't know. Right. We go over and cross the street and talk to them people about it. They don't know. You know what I mean? Even though you don't know, you still guilty.
That's why I said we lost. You don't even know. You don't even know why you getting jacked up on every which side.
People don't have a clue. Don't have a clue. Right? But all of this stuff is built in, right? Because when he made this covenant and they accepted to the covenant, they also accepted the future generations that you were supposed to be teaching.
Don't even had no clue, but you accepted this for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Back then.
Your fathers accepted this covenant for you.
Whether you wanted
you wasn't even there. And now, right now, that somebody was supposed to teach you, your parents, and they didn't, right? And then, but you still guilty though. You still guilty of what you didn't know.
What you don't know.
Right? But that's built in because they sat up there and spoke for us back here, right? but those people there, yes, you're right, was the future generations, right? It's the future generations, the ones who wasn't even born yet, was as if they were standing right there with those people.
Like an arranged
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah, right. So the future generations, the children, right? So I think that this is something that's important when you think about the idea of understanding what your Israelite heritage actually is, right? Because there was something that was established for you to be walking in, but nobody told you. You know what I mean? There was a life that you were supposed to be connected to, a lifestyle, a way of life that you were supposed to be connected to, but nobody told you about it. But the fact that nobody didn't tell you about it don't free you from its obligation.
Right.
and this is something I think that people don't understand, that I think is important, is that, we have, it's almost like, it, I was just watching. I ain't gonna say what I was watching, but I was just watching this thing where the whole point of it is that this individual at some point in his life had to return to his inherited responsibilities, right? He went and lived his life of selfishness and leisure, while there was a life in his past that he was connected to, and he got to the place where he had to return back to this inherited responsibility, right? And when we think about this lifestyle that we live in, that's what it is for us.
Right.
We have to return as a people back to this way of life that the Most High is given to us, that our parents got us into, back here on this day, to return. Now, the difference is now that the way in which we're able to return is different, because it's not just about my father and my mother telling me about a thing, right? Because that's just going to put me back into this old covenant thing that's not going to work with my carnal mind. We must be renewed spiritually by what it is that Yeshua HaMashiach provides for us, which is that spiritual renewal, which gives us the strength to be able to rise up and walk in these ways, and be able to circumvent these oaths that have been attached to us.
A question for you.
Yeah.
So, from one aspect, like say, okay, how the scriptures say that seed needs to be planted.
Say that again.
How the scriptures say that, like a seed will be planted, but he's the one who waters it, right?
Yeah. Which is an excellent thing. But go ahead, say what you said.
So, like for instance, if you ain't walking in ignorance and nobody tells you, now granted, I don't put it past the Most High to be able to just, you should just have a spirit like Paul. He come and just knock you and just give you an awakening. But like for instance, me and most other people that come in direct contact, unless anybody could say differently, you either had to come in contact with somebody who kind of either knew, or some experience that led you to seek it and then see it. So it's like, when my point is like, it kind of got to start carnally to guide you to, and it grows spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Something that kind of prods you, or would you, from what you're saying is there instances where it's just straight spiritual, you just blind. Now you woke.
Well, I think that I would say that at some point there has to be that seed that's planted.
I think the seed would be spiritual.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, you're probably right. But I think what I'm saying is that speaking of kind of the Israelite heritage standpoint, if I say if I go and my thing is telling people that they're don't you know that you're actually the physical descendants of Israel. That's only dealing with the carnal aspect because it's not connecting you to the Almighty. But now, what am I doing with that seed that's planted? So what I'm saying is that it could be kind of a mental seed that's planted, right? And but it's going to take that spiritual awakening of that seed that was planted to for actual growth and actually being connected to the Almighty. That got to happen, or else what's you not connected, right? The whole purpose of, when we think about the whole purpose of the new covenant, is to be able to bring the people that has been destroyed, as it says, that was literally utterly destroyed, to bring the people back. But hold on one second. But the only way that happens is through the Spirit. You can't get back into the old cycle that already was, because we already seen, because of our carnality, the system don't work, because our carnal, our stony heart don't allow for it to work. We need to be changed from the inside out. So what I'm saying is that there has to be, and even when we talked about this last week, there has to be that pouring of the Spirit, or else all you looking at is dead, dry bones. You're not even looking at skeletons. Like, I don't even know that that's skeletons. All I see is dead, dry bones, and it's only the Spirit that gathers those bones together. So it wasn't some type of carnal knowledge that caused the bones to even come together in the first place. It was the Spirit. And then once the Spirit got poured out, then now you got something that's together, but it still needed, it was like dead bodies then, right? It still needed another pouring out for that thing to be transformed again. So it got to be the Spirit. But what happens is that I'm not saying that it can't come, I'm not saying that the process can't begin from a carnal perspective. I'm not saying that. But if that's all you got,
no,
it's not alive. It's dead.
I'm saying that ultimately it starts from there.
From where? Well, we're human beings.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So say like you got the bones and they scattered. Somebody hypothetically, so you got to gather the bones so then they can form. That's like a physical act, and then the Spirit come and make them bones live.
Well, the difference is that that wasn't what happened. I rolled up. If I'm the prophet, I roll up on this valley, and I look in the valley, and it looks like just bones, dry bones is what I see. Mm-hmm. I don't see a people. I don't see a destroyed people. All I see is dry bones. I don't know what those people are until I speak, till the Spirit comes out and that Spirit enacts on the people. Well, I don't know they're people. They become that after the fact. So that's what I'm saying. For me, it kind of gets into like a slippery slope, because what happens is that people get caught up in the carnality. People get caught up in carnality, and then that supersedes the spiritual, where it got to be the reverse, because the thing that is causing those dry bones not to be dry bones anymore isn't the carnal aspects. Even though I know the end result, even though that I know that the end result is supposed to be something from a carnal perspective in terms of the physical people being renewed again. So even though I know that the end result is something that's happening to a physical people, I also have to understand that the facilitator of that, the instigator of that, got to be spiritual.
Right.
So that's why I always want to put the spiritual part up front.
But see, okay, because the spiritual part translates to physical action, though.
Yeah.
So
in terms of the walking, you mean?
Right. So it's like when I speak about the carnal aspect, it's the spirit working within whoever, like the scriptures say, his word is spirit. It's life. It's so the person that will have it in them and then they speak, that's that spiritual seed that you can plant. But the person that had to plant it. Like the scriptures say, I will make you fishers of men. You know what I'm saying? Like to go out and
you just made me think about, we was talking about the double-edged sword that's able to cut between the soul and the spirit. So when you think about this, is weird, because I'm sitting up here and I'm actually looking at physical words on a page, but at the same time it has spiritual implications.
Right.
But if it's not being handled from a spiritual aspect, it's not it like say for instance, me simply opening up this book and reading it is not necessarily going to expect me from, it's not necessarily going to affect me from a spiritual perspective.
Right.
Hitler opened up and read it and it didn't affect him.
Right. So when the spirits kind of mix with this physical thing, is when that happens.
And it becomes the living word.
Even when you think about the idea of the word, the living word is not just a word. Right. It's a living word. It's alive. Right. So to me, I feel like it's not. I don't know that I could even talk about it as being like a cut and dry thing in terms of the seed being, maybe it's a physical seed or maybe it's a spiritual / physical seed.
Yeah.
It's some kind of a mixture, because I can't all the way put it on the physical side. There got to be some spirit in there, right? Because when we think about the Ruach, it's described as being like a seed, like an earnest, like a down payment, that grows. So is the spirit the seed, but you receive, you have faith because you heard something. Right. Faith comes by hearing. Right. And you hearing like words and stuff, right? Right. So it's some kind of mixture. But my only thing is that I want to be sure to not kind of put the most weight on the carnal aspect, understanding that we already saw what carnality without the spirit looks like. And little, I think, is being nice. Okay, I don't want you to forget what you was trying to say.
I wasn't forget that. So, that's why I wanted to tell a story. Once I got, it's kind of the gist. So, I see the seed as being like the truth. You know what I mean? And once the truth is planted, then it starts to grow. So the truth is not necessarily, the truth is not a carnal thing. You know what I mean? And so my experience, had nothing to do with the flesh. It was nothing flesh. So I opened up the scripture and began to read, seeking honestly the truth, right? And so I'm reading, and the Holy Spirit is who revealed the carnal side to me. So it wasn't somebody preaching or nothing. I'm reading the scripts, and the Holy Spirit tells me this is talking about my people, right? And so I was like, wow, you know, it made so much sense, but I rejected it. I rejected that, and the Holy Spirit went away. It didn't even bother me about it until like maybe like 10 years later. Like literally, I rejected the Holy Spirit where he was trying to lead me at that time because I wasn't ready for it, because I was so brainwashed with, oh, white people. Oh, no, that's the Jews. You know what I mean? And so I didn't even know, I really didn't even know the Holy Spirit at that time. Like, you know, this is me first coming. You know, I'm having these thoughts. I don't know what it is. I'm thinking it's my brain just talking to me. You know what I mean? But I know now that it was the Holy Spirit that was revealing these things to me. And I believe that every true believer, everybody who comes seeking the truth, the Holy Spirit is going to lead you into the truth of who you are. It don't take nobody preaching to you or none of that. Every Christian that's in the church that is truly seeking, I know the Holy Spirit then told them, and they're rejecting it.
Yeah. Quick question for you. So the first time you rejected it, up until the point where you decided, or came, however many years later, what made you change then?
What made me change is because I came to that road. I came to that crossroad where Christianity didn't make sense.
It didn't.
Where I had more questions than I had answers.
Right.
And then I had to like fall back, like, wait a minute, this don't make sense. When I come to the question of sin, and sin is a transgression of the law, but repenting for sin, but sin is done away with. All these different questions that I had to come to, I said something ain't right.
Something ain't right.
And so then I started seeking, you know, information, and that made sense. So yeah, it was literally, once you come to a road, if you're really seeking the truth, man, there ain't no way you can't find it. Ain't no way that the Most High is not going to reveal it to you. So people out here are playing with the game.
They're playing with the game.
You know what I'm saying? They're playing with the game.
The thing about it is that the thing is that John 14 and 26 says, but the Comforter, which is the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he shall teach you all things and bring all things to your remembrance, whatsoever I said unto you. And then in one verse, I don't know where it says it'll bring you into all truth. I forget what that verse is. But the point is that you're right, which is a problem that you see when you see people that say that, you know, people who proclaim to have the Ruach inside of them, yet their life don't reflect what the purpose of the Ruach is, being to cause you to walk in his ways. Well, not only to cause you to walk his ways, but to also gather his people. You can't be gathered as his people if you don't know that you are his people. So there's things that happen. So it takes it takes a kind of a stubbornness, a rebelliousness to not accept this stony heart. But interestingly enough, we see, we keep on going, we see this brought up here, right? Because 16 and 13. What did it say?
Howbeit when he, the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide
16:13. That is
he
true.
will guide you into all truth.
That is
he
right.
shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come.
So if you're not being guided into all truth, either you're not listening or ain't or well, I will put that in the same category. Or you don't got the Spirit in the first place.
What's wrong with our people? I mean, you plant that seed. I thought once you plant the seed, it was high
Well, he gives the increase. You like so you plant, he might come and water, and then the Most High gives the increase.
But you also got to be willing to let that manifest in you. You know what I mean? Like I had a conversation with my uncle. He seen some posts and realized that we don't do the holidays, so he reached out to my mom and was like, "I'm gonna talk to him." I didn't want to have a conversation
because he thought she was in the cult.
Yeah, so we get into it, and you know what I mean. This is all through text, and we're going back and forth, and it gets to the point where he was like, "Well, this is the crossroad where I'm going to have to go the opposite direction," because, like you said, you know what I mean. If you're seeking the truth, you're not going to want to stop that conversation. You're going to take that road as far as it'll take you. A lot of our people don't want. It gets to the point where they're like, "Oh no, this is getting to the point where, like I was saying before, people don't want to be held accountable. They think that if I don't know, I'm not accountable," which is what we just read is untrue because our forefathers already made you accountable.
Right.
But,
okay, is that how the people, like the Christians and them, is that how they're thinking? Is that why so many of our people are being misled?
Well, yeah, they have lifted up their pastor in the position of the Most High. They basically are hinging their whole belief system on what their whole salvation. The salvation is on there.
Nobody's reading for themselves.
Nobody.
It is ignorance. People, I don't even know that people are doing this thing on purpose. On an individual level, it's not like I'm just doing whatever. But I'm saying as a whole. But Romans 8:13 says, "For if you 8:14, for as many as are led by the Spirit of Elohim, they are the sons of Elohim." Before that, it said in verse 9, "But you are not in the flesh, but in the spirit, if so be that the Spirit of Elohim dwell in you. Now, if any man have not the Spirit of Messiah, he's none of his." Right. So you're not even part of Messiah. You're none of his if you don't have the Ruach.
Right.
But now in 14, as many as are led by the Spirit, those are the ones that's called the son of Elohim. So it takes more than even that spiritual seed to be in you. Mm-hmm. It takes more than even that spiritual seed to be in you. You got to actually be led by the Spirit. You got to actually allow that Spirit. Like I said, the Spirit's telling you, take 2 lefts and then a right.
Yeah, go that way.
But you ain't doing it. That's wicked.
Which is why
you're not walking in the Spirit.
That all are called, but only a few are chosen. You understand? Because look, even in my transition to the greatest awakening I ever had, I got tired of listening to man. I felt like Chris. I was up in the church asking questions. It wasn't getting answered. They kept doing justifications of how they felt or assumed the scriptures was saying. So I had left the church. I even embraced Islam, seeking the truth. And I found that even that was flawed. I studied Jehovah's Witnesses. I studied Catholicism. I studied many religions, only practiced a few, but it got to a point where I was sitting in my room and I was praying and I was crying and I was hollering at, "Hey, y'all," I didn't even know his name at the time. I said, "I don't know what to call you no more, first of all." I said, "I'm tired of what man is teaching me or telling me how to believe. I want you to do it for me. I need you. I need you right now." So as a result of that, the Spirit came and led me to see things of my own understanding and revealed a lot of stuff to me that I couldn't get answers for previously. I started seeing a name. The first thing hit me was Proverbs 30, verse 4. That was the very first thing that hit me. Do you know his name and his son's name? I was like, whoa. Then it took me to Jeremiah. My people have forgotten my name for Baal. Took me to Hosea 2:16. They should no more call me Balaam. Well, I found out that was my Lord. So I went from there. And then I asked certain questions I would read And instead of picking up the phone, calling somebody, I would consult the Ruach. I was like, well, what does this mean? What does this mean? I want to know, why did they pick up stones to throw at Yeshua when he said before Abraham was, I am? Why did they fall back on the ground when they went to go rest him in the garden of Gethsemane because he said, I am he? The scriptures took me to Malachi 1:14, said, because my name is dreadful among the heathens. You know? Then I went to Deuteronomy 28, found out who I was. I said, well, I'll be. You know, at first it was a hard pill to swallow. It was a hard pill to swallow because I thought I was getting some cold. I was getting stripped of everything that was not of Yah. Because even in Christianity, I played with it. I go to church on Sunday, Monday through Saturday. I'm cutting the fool. But I was able to believe that all I got to do is confess my sins to Jesus, and I'll be covered by the blood of Jesus. And Monday through Saturday, I can go back and do it again. You know, because they told me the law was done away with. But
you got that magical
get out of jail ticket.
ticket.
But when I found out what sin actually was, transgression of the law, I started asking them, how could the law be done away with if it's transgression of the law of sin? And y'all telling us we shouldn't sin, but sin is transgression of the law. So if the law is done away with, I can sin freely, right? You know? So therefore, man, I just, that's how my path began, you know. And ever since then, I ain't been looking back.
I talked to him the same way. I asked him what was his name. Mine came about, I like history. I love history, and I start researching things. And he took me on a path in a journey too. So when he got me there, I took that faith to my daughter. So to me, that's a blessing because in my family, my grandma had like 5, 7 kids. All of them died. Only one branch sprouted roots. One, and that's the one I'm from. So right. I was like in that same area how I found them. So I just couldn't understand why we was the outcasts. That bothered me.
Yeah.
I thought he loved all his kids. You know, why are we such an outcast and everybody looked down on us, you know? And after I started studying, and I studied not just our nationalities, but others.
Others as well.
Yeah.
That's a good song. Why us?
Why us? Yeah.
And so when you look at that, you think about it, you thinking about it in that way until you understand the character of the Almighty. I could see somebody else's kids run acting crazy, and that's somebody else's kids. But let mine start acting up. They're gonna get punished. Right? Because those are the ones that we just had read about, who wasn't there, but they was being accounted for even though they wasn't there. Okay, I wanted to look at these couple verses because just to see the other side about these ones who are kind of when we ask the question why, like why is these people, why are they not following after the Almighty? Read 17 and 18 there.
And you saw their abominations and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which were with them. Lest there should be among you a man or a woman or clan or tribe whose heart turns away today from Yah our Elohim, to go and serve the mighty ones of these nations. Lest there should be among you a root bearing bitterness and wormwood.
And let's keep going down to 21, actually.
And it shall be, when he hears the word of this curse, that he shall bless himself in his heart, saying, I have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart, in order to add drunkenness to thirst. Yah will not forgive him, but rather the displeasure of Yah, and his jealousy shall burn against that man, and every curse that is written in this book shall settle on him, and Yah shall blot out his name from under the heavens. And Yah shall separate him for evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of Torah.
Okay, so when we go back up here, we see this where it says Y'all aim to go and to serve mighty ones of those other nations, of these nations, lest there should be among you a root bearing bitterness or wormwood.
Wormwood. You look up wormwood.
That was what, 18?
Yeah. No. It was
yeah, bearing gall, which was that bitterness.
Right.
Which is
Roche.
A poisonous plant. Probably the poppy.
My favorite dressing. Poppy seeds.
Where they make heroin now.
Yeah, so interesting thing about this, Rash, right? That's the same word that means head. Yeah. The poppy plant is, before it has the flower, it's this little skinny stem with this big, huge head on top.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz.
I don't know if it's like this. It's probably.
I'm like, what?
I'm just doing the shape. It's probably like like that. Probably. I'm doing that because it's a shape. It goes up and it comes out like a big head, right? But it's giving you this word that is translated as gall, or in some ways bitterness, because of the poison, the poisonous of that thing, right? They get that that's opiates stuff come from that particular poppy thing. So it's talking about this bitterness, right? That has the look of this big head thing, right? When you think about big-headedness, to me at least, I think about stiff-neckedness.
Stiff-neckedness.
Right? I think about high-mindedness.
ABCs.
You like that stiff-neckedness?
You know what I mean by ABC.
but so when you think about this bitterness that is talking about this poisonous plant, and also this wormwood, which is also has the idea of this bitterness, this curse, this poisonous. It's a different word that's giving you the same kind of meaning in terms of this poisonous bitterness.
That's so interesting that word hemlock. I don't know what that is, but there was this anime thing I was watching one time, and his name was like Captain Hemlock.
Captain
Poison.
Hemlock.
Bitterness.
Yeah.
But look what it says about this wormwood. That's interesting. Look at this. What it says about this wormwood. This a noun indicating word wormwood, bitterness. It is always used in a figurative, metaphorical sense. It describes the character of an adulteress as bitter of wormwood. It is used of a rebellious or bitter root or spirit in persons. That's what we're looking at here, Deuteronomy 29:18. That appropriately results in judgments of bitterness, wormwood judgments, so on and so forth. But it's saying that this is always used kind of in this symbolic, like metaphorical sense, where we think about what this stuff is, this bitter thing, this poison that you intake that causes death, right? That brings about death and sickness. In this regard, it's talking about rebellion, right? So when we look at this, and then look how it goes on in the next verse, and it come to pass when he hears this one that has this root bearing gall and bitterness, when it comes to pass, when he hears the words of this curse, that he blesses himself in his heart. I'll have peace, though I walk. I'll have peace. So you talking about this individual who's walking against the Almighty, walking against his judgments, knowingly walking against his judgments, and yet still he has peace.
You call that a self-centered person? It's all about him.
Yeah, I would. But when we walk in sin, that is what that is, though. You know, I don't need that stuff you talking about. I could just do whatever I want. I walk, though I walk in the imagination of my own heart.
Mm-hmm.
Think about our friend.
Do that.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know it. I don't know if you ever met him.
yeah. I was kind of thinking about that too.
He
But
says that all the time. Like, yeah, I don't need. You tell him, he's like, I don't need that. Like, he's like, I'm good with the Creator.
But
you know.
yeah, but what I'm saying is that look at these characteristics that is putting on this one, you know, who is rejecting the Almighty. Right? This idea of this bitterness, this stubbornness. Right? What's this word here? Imagination. Twisted.
Cerebral.
Sherry root. Sherry root. Twisted, right? Firm. This is firmness, obstinacy. It's firmness, but it's in rebellion. Right? It's like the opposite of like faith. Because faith is also firmness. But this is firmness in obstinacy. Stubbornness. Yeah. And again, these are things that it's talking about in terms of those that are going against what the Almighty is saying. This, my version says that he will boast, saying, I have peace, though I walk in the stubbornness of my heart. But okay, so we talk to people. So this caused me to think about, we talk to people, right, who may not necessarily be outright going against the Almighty, not like explicitly doing it, but they're kind of high frequency doing it when they sit up there and talk about boasting in this twistedness, in this iniquity. If I'm gonna sit up here and talk about you for trying to do what the Most High likes, like it is sin, right. And I'm gonna walk around in my lawlessness and talk about this lawlessness like it's righteousness. Yeah. But that's just like this person here who's sitting up here and saying who they're at peace. They're at absolute peace as they walk in the stubbornness of their heart. Because that is, I don't know how you connect that to the God of this book. Right. I don't know how you do it.
That reminds me of a post that I saw. It really made me giggle and laugh because a brother just came out of nowhere and posted up, if you're not celebrating the Passover with ISUPK, you are sinning. I said, wow. I said, see the mentality of children being force-fed meat without giving milk, because they think that they are it, like they're the ones and sliced bread. They are. But the alphabet camps, man. But no, I didn't either. But then I had to understand that the ABC camps come from a root, come from the withered fruit of a rotted tree in the first place. And it's been spread throughout Israel. But it's up to us to know them by the fruit that they don't even produce. But the thing is, I noticed they attract a lot of the young crowd by promoting polygamy. You know, that's a way to get them in. And like Ox said, they don't give them the fundamentals. They don't give them the milk they need. In the post he made, got milk. I love that. Because that shows exactly what I was talking about. You know, people need to understand, if you operating outside of the Ruach, You leaning on your own understanding, which can cause you to fall in error in your precepts, or understanding of precepts. So they got to understand, and they set themselves up with all these cool costumes, looking like they running late for a George Clinton funkadelic concert, and they really think that that's going to save them. It's just totally wrong, man. But we are also told in the scriptures, you hear foolishness come from the mouth of someone, get away from them. But it's up to the individual to have discernment. Bottom line.
But he's pulling. I see him pulling people out of these camps too.
Oh yeah, he's pulling them out because a lot of them come to me and tell me, I left.
I mean, when you think about it, somebody said it before, many are called, but few are chosen.
Right.
Yeshua said, my sheep hear my voice. Just because you see somebody that's walking around that look like you, don't necessarily mean that they Israel. Right? At the end of the day, the ones who are going to be are going to be. The Most High don't make no mistakes. So when you look at this, thinking about the characteristics of these individuals, right? You looking at this thing. When I look at these verse 18 and 19, it's a delusion, right? It's a false belief. If you're going to sit up here that the Most High is going to put these things on me if I don't walk in His ways, and especially these people here, this lets you see the delusion in it when you dealing with people who saw the Most High and saw what He was capable of doing and saw what those curses look like manifest, right? And then to say, I'm at peace. I don't care about what you saying gonna happen, even though I actually did see it happen in real life. I don't really care about it. Right? That's delusional. Right? But it's moving with a certain I don't want to say knowledge, I'll just say information. Where there has been some type of information that's causing these people to have some sense of security in something.
Right.
When we're looking at these people, it don't make any sense because of the fact that they actually saw the Almighty do His thing.
Right.
But when we see this manifest, now I'm saying you look and people have this false sense of security that's based on whatever it's based on. But you're able to see kind of these characteristics that are familiar, this stubbornness, pride, right, that builds up in people and causes them to think more of themselves than they ought, right? This hardness that we see, right? Psalms 81:12 said, so I gave them up unto their own hearts' lusts, and they walked in their own counsels. Right? This is where people are.
Man, that's so deep.
And I'm just saying we're able to look just based on this. We're able to look and see, just like we're able to see characteristics of the Almighty, we're able to see characteristics of those people who are following, who are not following after His ways.
Right. Because I'm gonna choose my words carefully because I know this is PG, but I got really agitated when I heard General Yohana, I'm gonna say his name, I don't care, leader of ISUBK, come out of his mouth and say that it is not a sin and it's okay to sodomize your wife. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you be preaching this? This don't have nothing to do with the truth, first of all. It don't have nothing to do with Yeshua and the salvation. Because it takes me to the thought that everything that comes out their mouth revolves around sex. And it's just wrong. It's just so wrong because you can't go out there teaching this twisted cereal box doctrine when you're not getting into the importance of the word.
But the problem is that these people's foundations cannot be in Messiah. They cannot be. And the reason why you know that is because of how they behave.
Right.
I don't know these people from nothing, but I can sit and see how they move and say without a shadow of a doubt that their foundation is not in Messiah. It cannot be.
Can't be.
Right. So, but the problem is that because of the state of our people being so wanting just to attach themselves to something, you know, they getting these people in, right?
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these leaders are like FBI agents.
Yeah. They are. They are. Hey, Chris, I did a research on it. They are. Yeah. You know, I found out in the history of them trying to infiltrate the Israelite movement in the beginning, the first camp, one West, their leader was an agent for the government, you know?
Well,
it trickled on down.
That's starting out because I know people that was there, they brought them in, and those who took the payoffs.
Yeah, they took the payoffs. That's right. Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, Nathaniel of Israelite United in Christ was a detective and still affiliated with the Fraternal Order of Police. You know, so they're still working with the government. This is why it's so easy for them to set up camps and be well established to take on so many people. And people be attracted by the number of people that's affiliated with them. Like, oh my goodness, I want to get down with them.
Which to me is a turnoff. It's a
turnoff. Yeah, it's a turnoff.
If I see a whole bunch of people doing it, to me, I feel like it's something wrong with that.
Yeah, because
just that. I don't even know what they're doing. But just a matter of fact that I see that there's so many people doing that, it can't be. That can't be right.
Yeah, they are Masons because you can tell by their guards.
It's the same thing with the Christian churches.
Yeah, same thing. They're affiliated.
It can't be right. They're too big.
Christian pastor at work all the time is it's a narrow road. How all y'all fitting on this narrow road?
They can't.
Y'all walking one by one like ants.
They can't.
This ain't how this is gonna work.
They can't, brother.
All of y'all doing the same thing. It just doesn't add up.
But if you know what the scripture says, is broad and wide is the road that leads to destruction, and many are on it.
And you need that broad and wide road for all of the Christian churches.
Yeah, and but not only them, the so-called Israelites as well.
Exactly.
Because if you notice, even in scripture, which I was pointing out to a brother who made the claim that Israelites believe, you know, that the Bible it resolves around them, which is true, right? So I came out with the 50 caliber, of course, but I was stressing that if you notice in the New Testament, it's all talks about Israel. It talks about them teaching Israel the ways of Yeshua. It's talk about Israel most repenting, you know. They offered it to Gentiles, but if the actual meaning was Israel to turn back to Yah through belief in Yeshua,
right?
So how can it be not for the Israelites? I don't understand that. It's our book. It's the original FUBU. Do you remember FUBU? It was written for us by us. That's the original.
The thing that we got to remember, though, and it's interesting that you're talking about this, because the fact of the matter is that you got the same people who sitting up here making these arguments. It's the same people that we talking about who's out here on this foolishness because of the emphasis being on who you physically are, your carnality. Right. And them same ones who sitting up here arguing with this other person about this or that is the same ones who sitting up here standing on these things that don't got nothing to do with Messiah. Right. So when we look at these things, right, and we have to get to the place to understand we're able to look at the Torah and see what these people was doing and understand that the missing ingredient here with these people is Messiah. Right. We started off looking at and seeing that they started off even saying at the beginning of the chapter, they saw all of these things with their own eyes. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't good enough. They saw things that we ain't never gonna see. Never gonna see it. And those things wasn't good enough for them. There has to be a thing that we're able to look to that says that gets us, over the hump.
Right.
And that thing is Messiah. It got to be Messiah. He has to be at the forefront, right? And when we look around and we see the fruits of these people, we can see and just know how he ain't at the forefront just based on how these people are behaving. It's crazy. It's lunacy. It's lunacy. Right. And you could look and see and don't even got to think about it to see what these people was on. Whether they implants, whether they implants or whatever, don't even matter. You could just, I don't care what team they working for, that they ain't working for the right team. I don't know what team it is, but it ain't the both sides team.
It ain't the right team.
I don't know who their captain is. I don't know.
And when they go against scripture and preaching a lot of hate, you hear me, Chris? When they preach a lot of hate, they're using the truth as a weapon,
which is what
totally wrong. Because Yeshua said, when they asked him what's the greatest commandment, what did he tell them? To love y'all with all your heart, mind, soul, etc., etc. The second is just like this: love your neighbor as you love yourself. On these two hang all the laws and the prophets. But they forget stuff like that because, like when I was ministering to that white Christian couple, and they automatically assumed that I was affiliated with the gold and purple cup. And I had to tell them, no, I do not preach hate. I explained to them about Romans and the grafting in and whatnot. I say, believe this. As long as you follow the laws, and do what you're supposed to do, you'll be grafted in too. I said, there is no help for you if you do that. I said, don't listen to that foolishness. I said, because it's all foolishness and ignorance. You understand it? Which provoked me to write a letter to the Gentiles, explaining them their true good news, all in Romans. But I also let them know this is something that you should not boast in, because this is presented to Israel first. Y'all only was presented to this to provoke us to jealousy. I said, and by all means, I was jealous. I was jealous. Like, come on, y'all. Okay, I'll take it. All right, I'll take it.
When we look at, it's interesting that we have actually kind of an interesting, I don't know what else to say besides interesting. We have an interesting problem that we have where, we have our people kind of on three sides.
Right.
That we need to be able to reach. You got people who don't know nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
You got you got to approach them differently, but I'm saying they all need to be dealt with, right? You got the people who don't know anything, who's not attached to nothing. You got the Christian people, regular mainstream Christian people who, they got their Christian hang-ups.
They think they know.
That's what I mean.
They think they know
that at various levels, right? You got the people who just go to church, and you got the people who's the teachers, right? At various levels, and then you got the people that's saying that they Israelites,
right?
And whether these people need to be pulled to the right or to the left, somebody got to do something, because you got on the one side, you got these people over here. Again, I don't know who's the people that's behind all of this stuff, but you got them people who making the masses feel like that is the representation.
Right.
Making everybody look bad. You got the regular Christian people also being included in the masses, looking at them and saying, well, how you gonna sit up here and tell me I'm supposed to be doing that?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's just a big mess. It's just a big mess. But what I'm saying is that at the bottom of it, I'm saying if Messiah can be first,
right,
in all of this, that's the only way these things get weeded out.
Right.
Where I could sit down and talk to anybody at any length of time about anything. But if Messiah is not at the forefront of all that talking I'm gonna be doing, it ain't gonna do nothing. At some point it got to get to the place where the spirit is the thing that's working in people. And it's so necessary because it's just a mess. It's just a mess. We got so much work to do. It's so many different people that are on opposite side of the spectrum that need to be dealt with. That because it's your responsibility to deal with these people. But again, like we were just saying earlier, it lets you know when you see these big masses of groups doing all of these things, that can't be the straight gate. No. How is it the straight gate?
Don't forget about the people that stone got a hold of Islam.
Oh yeah, Leviticus talks about that.
I guess we cover on 4 sides.
Yeah, 4 sides.
We got way.
I got a lot of stuff. Hey Chris, I got a ton of information.
They all
on that,
about it.
Be in the book.
Yeah.
Get the book.
All right, let's what time is it?
It's cool. It's 10 after.
All right, let's get ready to let's see what else. Let's look at this verse 25 and 26 real quick before we
move back up a little bit.
I wanted to let's look at 25 and 26, then we'll look at one more thing after that, and then we'll be done.
And it shall be said, because they have forsaken the covenant of Yah Elohim of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Misraim, Egypt. And they went and served other mighty ones and bowed themselves to them, mighty ones that did not know and that he had not given to them.
So this is just, I wanted to just bring this out because we always see this here. We always see this idea of yada, to know. We always see this idea of yada, which is to know. And, whether we're talking about Yeshua speaking and his sheep knowing his voice, or we're talking about Yeshua speaking and him talking about these people who did all these things in his name, yet he never knew them.
Depart from me.
Right? This idea of knowing is powerful. This idea of having that intimate relationship with the Almighty is powerful. This is the key element, right? To have this intimate relationship with the Almighty. And when you don't have this, we see what happens. He's talking about these people who serving these other gods, right? That's what he's talking about. These people who went and served these other gods.
That's right.
All these other gods that you never knew. You went and connected yourself to these other mighty ones and these other gods and served them and bowed down to them, but you never had no relationship with them. But you got into these different covenants and stuff with them.
Right.
And so we see that, this idea is important, even putting in with the rest of the stuff that we're talking about here in terms of these people, how we even start off talking about these people who was there, who are entering into this covenant, and the people who wasn't there, who also entered into this covenant, and us talking about the problems with the people who didn't realize that they was connected to this covenant that they didn't even know of, but suffering the consequences of. this idea of this intimate knowledge is a key component here, because it's the thing that's at the utmost importance. When we look at the 10 Commandments, the first thing that we have to do is know who the Almighty is.
Right.
The first thing he does is saying who he is. I am Yahweh thy Elohim, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. The first thing that's even done is an understanding of who he is. And when we don't have that proper understanding of who the Almighty is, we end up being these ones who's go out here following after these other mighty ones and bowing down to them and serving them.
That I find that very compelling, because even in Exodus 24, it tells us not to do that. Not to bow down, not to make any graven images, not to bow down to them. In Leviticus, it tells you where is it at? In the land. So not make any images made out of stone. Specifically saying stone, right? In your land, and bow down to it. In Islam, they do it 5 times a day. No matter where they at in the world, they got to face Mecca, where the Kaaba stone is, and make salat 5 times a day.
They made that.
Oh, they offer it to them. I used to be a Muslim, so I know.
I thought it was a big meteor.
Yeah. No, well, it is a meteor, right? Where it goes back in biblical times, where Diana for Ephesians, and all that stuff, where they was like, great is Diana.
Well, wasn't it like 360 of them stones?
No, they were idols. They wasn't. They were stones. They were idols. There were 360 idols that sat in the Kaaba, and Allah wasn't even the chief one. It was Hubble. And however, later Allah, which was Al-Ilah before it became Allah, had 3 daughters that was looked at as goddesses. But nevertheless, Muhammad came, tore down 359 of them, and left the one there and said, this is your God. He has no partner, sons or daughters. He's the only one true one. But guess what? He was still an idol. So you got to understand, and it was in the Kaaba. So they still bow down towards the Kaaba.
Yeah, I don't want to get caught up in all of this stuff. It don't really matter.
I just want to clear that one up real quick.
It don't really matter who made it, if it was formed or not. If it's not the Almighty, whether it's formed or not formed, you can't be bound down to it.
Then the other aspect is the wood. Of course, we all know what the wood is. So, but he told us it would happen. He said, I will scatter you to the 4 corners of the earth. You'll be made to worship other gods of wood and stone. He told us it would happen. I consulted him about that. I said, come on now, y'all. You knew this was going to happen because you said it yourself. I said, help us, man. Help us. Help us, please. You know what I'm saying? I was so serious. When is this punishment going to end? Come on.
Well, the thing about it is, on the individual level, the punishment can end instantaneously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing we can worry about. We can only worry about ourselves and the people around us, the people that you're able to touch.
Right.
And that's the only people that you can worry about.
As it said, don't catch your crow before swine.
Right. So the thing about it is that we know, we can see that the beginning processes of the restoration has already begun. Right, it begun in Acts chapter 2, right, when the Spirit got poured out. But that was before the people got totally dispersed. So when we look and see, after we in this state of being in this kind of, after kind of this great apostasy, when we have basically starting from scratch, literally being in this valley of dry bones, that word is going out. It's continuing to go out. And we got to hear the Ruach, and follow it, right? And once we get some sinew and some muscles and skin on our bones, then we go out and spread the word ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I want to get to and end with is over here in the next chapter. Is that the most necessary ingredient? You know, we end off where we started. We start off talking about the fact that these physical things that happen is not the things that's going to solidify the relationship with the Almighty. You know, you seeing physical things or hearing physical things or knowing about these physical things is not something that's going to solidify the thing. Read 1 through 6.
And it shall be, when all these words come upon you, the blessings and the curses which I have set before you, and you shall bring them back to your heart among all the nations where Yah your Elohim drives you, and shall turn back to Yah your Elohim and obey his voice according to all that I command you today, with all your heart and with all your being, you and your children. Then Yah your Elohim shall turn back your captivity and shall have compassion on you, and you shall turn back and gather you from all the people where Yah your Elohim has scattered you. If any of you are driven out to the farthest parts under the heavens, from where Yah your Elohim does gather you, and from there he does take you. And Yah your Elohim shall bring you to the land which your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he shall do good to you and increase you more than your fathers. And Yah your Elohim shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, to love Yah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live.
Read 6 again.
And Yah your Elohim shall circumcise your heart and the heart of your seed, children, to love Yah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being, so that you might live.
When we think about this idea of circumcision of your heart, it's interesting that is being kind of described as this circumcision, right? When you're cutting off that extra skin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But apart from certain individuals, handful of individuals in the scriptures, in general, circumcision is not something that you do to yourself.
Right.
Right. You could say, well, you know, somebody, Abraham circumcised himself or whatever, right? But you can't, but in general, it's not something that you do to yourself. It's something that's done to you. It's something that's done to you, right? So here we don't even got to think about it, because it says, and Yahweh your Elohim shall circumcise your Yahweh, the Most High is going to circumcise your heart. He's the one that's doing it. Right. So something is happening to your heart so that you might live. So that you might be able to love your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul, so that you may live. The Most High has to do that spiritual heart transplant on you, or else you're gonna be just like these people who was walking in the wilderness. The only way that this problem is rectified is by having that spiritual heart transplant done. Anything outside of that falls short.
Right.
And it's the Most High that's doing it. Right? It's the Most High. Whatever work that he's doing, he's the one that's doing it. I'm not circumcising my own heart. I'm not the one that's doing it. It's the spirit in me. It's his ruach inside of me, changing me and causing me to even want to walk in his ways. It's him doing it. It's him taking his laws and putting them inside of my heart. And he's putting the desire in my heart and in my mind to walk in his ways.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that's telling me, make two lefts and a right. And then he's not only telling me to do it, but he's giving me the strength to, right? So, this is the key. So when we look back here and see this, where he's saying to these people, that's the physical people that's physically there, how he's going to take, I'm going to play footsies there. He's taking this physical people there and talking to them about how he's going to physically take them over and gather them and all of this. But we know as a result of what it is that Yeshua has come and did, that this is how Yeshua is the way that this thing here is actually carried out. Right. We're able to know and see that the way that he's able to gather his people from the vast amount of places where he has scattered his people is by way of what Yeshua has done for us. And it's so important to think about this, the way that he's given it to us, in terms of this idea of circumcision, this surgery that's being done by the Almighty. He's the one that's cutting this covenant into your heart. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, and the heart of your seed.
Your children. That's right.
Right. So it's the same thing as before. So, yes, we raise up our children and we teach them the commandments, at every waking moment. But at some point, they got to actually have a spiritual heart transplant.
Right. Yeah.
At some point, they have to actually have a relationship established with Messiah on their own. Right. It might be based on our teachings, right? Mm-hmm. But that Ruach got to take it to the next level. And the same way that it is with our children is the same way that it is with whoever we may deal with, outside of our homes. Same exact thing. Just like we impress these commandments into our children, is the same way we you can't plant a seed without digging up some dirt.
Mm. Right.
The only way you can plant a seed is by digging up some dirt.
Absolutely.
And so, we got to think about these things, but we also, but most importantly, have to think about the fact that even though we may be planting these seeds, it's the Ruach it's the spirit that's actually changing that heart and transforming those individuals from the inside out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Okay, so that being said, does anybody have any last thoughts or comments before we be done with this?
I do. I just want to say that a lot of issues today, the reason why there's a lot of unbelief in the Christians, basically Christians, I'm not even going to speak on Islam because they way in another whole field, is the teachings of reverse, I call it reverse and replacement theology, which caused them to believe in reverse things of opposite of truth. For instance, when I was growing up in church, I thought that the Ashkenazis were the honest to truth, the chosen of God is what they taught me, and that we were Gentiles, which caused us to believe that the laws was not meant for us, just Israel, so that stems from a lot of reverse theology, replacement theology, which a lot of these so-called pastors are going through these seminary schools, being taught Catholic doctrine, which is full of reverse theology and replacement theology. I explained that in my website what it is, but however, it's obvious that that's the whole thing. That's the whole kit and caboodle, the way they think, because they believe that, they embrace it. But it's time to pull the wool over, from their eyes. It's time to crack the veil wide open. That's why I'm so glad that a lot of these discussions are starting to take place, because as I expressed with Tony earlier, this is something that really needs to be done. not done in the fact of debating to the point of harsh words and hatred, because they are our brothers and sisters as well. But it should be done in compassion too, and being patient, because we already know ahead of time they're going to try to come by preaching a sermon or elementary principles as if we don't believe in the Messiah ourselves, which we do. But for some reason, they think that we don't, you know. But it must take place, you know, because they are our people. Time is at hand. Man, it's real crucial, man. And we're supposed to be fishers of men, too.
Yeah, but my thing is that debate is not really the place. I was talking with Chris about the debate is not really the place where these things can even be done. Because if I'm entering into a debate with you, I'm basically yeah. And I'm not even trying to hear what you have to say. I'm trying to figure out how I could combat the thing that you saying. If you're talking about dialoguing and having genuine discussions, not in like a it got to be like in a non-formal kind of a thing where I'm gonna sit down with you and you could bring your side and I'm gonna bring my side, not in the you gotta have the thought of seeking truth. If you're not trying to seek truth and all I want to do is give you my points and hear your points, then we just debating again.
Yeah, because we can't catch our purpose for a swine. But you also gotta look at what Elijah did too now in the great showdown. How he went up against them.
But you got to be able to put everything in its right perspective. You know, sometimes it might be time for me to sit up here and challenge you and destroy your little doctrines from head to toe.
Yeah, because I heard
sometimes it might be time to do that. But I'm saying if I want to be in the situation where I'm going to be able to cause some type of change, it got to be you almost got to just be one-on-one with somebody,
right?
You know what I mean? In order to just cut out all of this other stuff and just be able to get down to the real situation, and remember, and let the Ruach be the one that's doing the changing, because I could tell you all of the scriptures that you can't rebuttal,
right? And you're still
and unless in your heart you want to actually be seeking after truth, you gonna come with your things that ain't topping what I'm saying, but it's just you trying to just be combatant.
Just for the sake of it.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we have to be able to allow for the Ruach to do what it came to do, because that's the only way anything's going to. That we got to always be ready. We definitely got to always be ready and know what, how you supposed to attack a thing. But we got to also use wisdom, which is a Ruach. We always got to be able to use discernment and know when to say when, and when to pull out your sword. And sometimes you gotta poke, and sometimes you gotta slice.
Well, you gotta understand.
Sometimes you gotta chop somebody's head off.
They're the ones that request it.
Yeah, but it's not always profitable though. You know what I mean? Even if they are requesting it, it's not always profitable. Sometimes it could be, but all I'm saying is that you got to be able to use discernment, just to know what is what. But just in closing, just to end with the fact that when we look and seeing what the issue was with Israel here in this situation and bring it up to now, the issue is that spiritual transformation. And we want to always be able to know that the key to all of this is having that spiritual transformation, not trying to, I can't convince nobody of nothing. But I can introduce you to the Messiah, who's able to change your heart and to change your mind and to bring you over into the place where you need to be.
That's right.
Okay, so on that note, we are going to be done for right now, and y'all willing, we will be back next week with some the next chapter. All right.
Got milk? Shabbat shalom, everybody. Have a y'all for one.